Welcome to our annual harvest celebration, my father announced, his voice echoing across the decorated barn at River Edge Vineyard. Today marks a new chapter in our family's legacy, and we're excited to announce that Andrea, fresh off completing her MBA, will be taking over as CEO. The crowd erupted in applause, but I stood frozen, my wine glass halfway to my lips. 6 months ago, I had transferred my entire life savings to save this vineyard from foreclosure. Now, I watched my younger sister step forward, glowing in her designer dress, a woman who had never worked a single day in the fields. My name is Jessica, and I'm 35 years old. I built my investment consulting firm from the ground up, growing it into a thriving business without ever asking my parents for help. Meanwhile, Andrea was enjoying a life of luxury, with her MBA paid for by them, while I spent 60-hour weeks learning the true meaning of hard work. That's why, when they called me crying about the foreclosure notice, I didn't hesitate. I transferred $850,000, the entirety of my savings. It wasn't even a question. I was saving our legacy. But now, I watched Andrea take the stage, someone who had spent her college years posing in vineyard photo shoots instead of learning about soil or fermentation. She couldn't even tell a Cabernet from a Merlot in a blind tasting last Christmas. "My name is Jessica," my mother said softly, placing a hand on my arm. "I hope you understand. Andrea's degree makes her the best choice to handle the business side of things." I cut her off, forcing a smile. "Of course, Mom. Andrea will do great." I raised my glass in a toast, keeping my voice steady despite the growing ice in my chest. "To the new CEO of River's Edge." Excusing myself, I stepped outside into the cool evening air and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts to find Rachel Thompson, the ruthless corporate lawyer I had met at wine industry events. I texted, "I need your help with a family business matter. Are you free tomorrow?" Her reply came quickly. "10 a.m. at my office. Bring any documentation you have." The next morning, I sat across from Rachel in her office overlooking downtown Dallas. She skimmed the bank statements, showing the $850,000 transfer to River's Edge Vineyard's account. "Let me get this straight," she said, looking up. "You transferred your entire life savings with no written agreement, no promissory note." "They're my family," I replied, the words now tasting bitter. When they called about the foreclosure, all I could think about was saving the legacy. 3 generations of winemaking about to be lost, because they over-leveraged the property for Andrea's MBA and the new tasting room. Rachel leaned back in her chair. "And now they've made her CEO, even though your investment saved the vineyard?" she asked, then paused. "Tell me about the day you transferred the money. What exactly did they promise?" I closed my eyes, remembering the desperation in my father's voice. "He said I'd be taken care of, that my investment would secure my place in the business." My mom was crying, talking about how they'd make it up to me. I opened my eyes, anger rising. Instead, they're acting like my contribution was just a daughter's duty. "Did anyone witness these conversations?" Rachel asked, her eyes sharp. "Yes," I said, sitting up straighter. "Their accountant, Michael, was there when I made the transfer. He kept suggesting we put something in writing, but my parents dismissed him, saying it would insult the family trust." Rachel's eyes gleamed. "Michael could be very useful. But first, we need to know your ideal outcome. Do you want control of the vineyard?" I shook my head. "I just want my investment back, with interest. Let Andrea have the CEO title. I'll start my own vineyard with my money, one they'll have to compete with." Rachel smiled. "I have a plan. Your parents' actions could be seen as verbal fraud. With Michael's testimony and these bank records, we can build a strong case. But instead of filing immediately, we'll send a demand letter. It will outline how their actions could be interpreted as financial manipulation. She grabbed a notepad. We demand repayment of your $850,000 plus 8% annual interest within 30 days. We'll also request all financial records since your investment. I suspect we'll find some interesting decisions after they received your money. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. And if they refuse? Then we file a lawsuit, and that will open their books to public scrutiny. Something tells me your sister's MBA hasn't prepared her for that kind of crisis management. The demand letter hit River's edge like a bomb. I was working from my apartment when Andrea called, her voice shrill with panic. A lawsuit? Are you insane? You're going to destroy everything we've built, she screamed. Dad's having chest pains because of you. I stayed calm as she ranted. The solution is simple. Return my investment with interest, $850,000 plus 8%. You can do the math. She paused, then tried a different angle. Your press lawyer should know that verbal agreements in family businesses are complicated. You can't prove anything. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Actually, I just spoke with Michael. Remember him? Your accountant. He gave a sworn statement about the day I transferred the money, about how he suggested putting it in writing, and how Dad promised me a secured place in the business. There was silence for a moment. Then Andrea's voice returned, cold. Hold on. Dad wants to talk to you. My father's voice came through, strained. Jessica, what are you doing to us? After everything we've done for you? I cut him off. Let's talk about that. While you paid for Andrea's education, her car, and her apartment, I built my own life. The only thing I ever asked for was a future here in exchange for saving the vineyard. We never promised you control, he countered. I'm not asking for control. I'm asking for my money back. Money you took knowing exactly what you planned to do with it. He softened his tone. Sweetheart, be reasonable. The vineyard doesn't have that kind of liquid capital right now. We'd have to take out another loan. Then you better start talking to banks. I shot back. You have 25 days before I file the lawsuit. And Dad, every financial decision made since my investment will be scrutinized, including Andrea's new Mercedes and your vacation to Tuscany. There was a muffled conversation in the background before my mom came on the line, pleading. Jessica, please, come over for dinner. We can talk about this as a family. I shook my head. We're not family right now. We're business associates in a dispute. Have your lawyer call Rachel with your response? I hung up, my hands shaking slightly, and my phone lit up with messages from relatives, ranging from angry accusations to pleas for peace. I ignored them all and opened my laptop, starting to research available vineyard properties in the next county. Soon, River's Edge would have some serious competition. The following week brought a revelation I hadn't expected. Michael, the accountant, called me urgently. We met at a quiet cafe where he handed me a thick folder. I've been reviewing the books since your investment, he said, looking around nervously. The numbers don't add up. I opened the folder and found detailed financial records. Michael pointed to several highlighted entries. Your $850,000 didn't just save the vineyard from foreclosure. It also funded a series of personal expenses that were logged as business costs. The new Mercedes? A delivery vehicle? The Tuscany trip? Market research. Even Andrea's MBA had portions backdated as employee education expenses. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. Michael's expression was grim as he slid a thick folder across the table. They used your investment for all this, he said. I flipped through the documents, heart sinking. There's more. 2 weeks before they made Andrea CEO, they registered a new company, Rivers Edge Holdings, LLC. They've been quietly transferring Vineyard assets to this new entity. The original Vineyard company, the one you invested in, is being hollowed out. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. It wasn't just about dismissing my contribution. They were working to ensure I had no claim to anything. The vineyard I had saved was becoming a shell. Your lawyer needs to see this, Michael said, his voice dropping low. But you didn't get it from me. I'm already looking for a new job. I can't be associated with this kind of manipulation. I grabbed my phone to call Rachel, but before I could dial, it buzzed. It was a text from Andrea. Family meeting tonight. Don't bring your lawyer. Last chance to fix this like family. I showed Michael the text, and he shook his head. They must know you're looking into the records. They're going to try to convince you to back down, or they'll threaten you. I typed back quickly. Any discussion needs to happen with lawyers present. Andrea's reply was swift. Your choice. But don't come crying when this gets ugly. I called Rachel, sent her photos of the documents, and waited for her response. Her sharp intake of breath told me everything I needed to know. This is exactly what I was looking for, she said. They've committed multiple financial improprieties. This isn't just a civil suit anymore. This could lead to criminal charges. I don't want them in jail, I said quickly. I just want my investment back. Then we can use this as leverage. Rachel's voice turned more businesslike. I'm drafting an amended demand letter. Instead of 30 days, they have 48 hours to return your money with interest or face an investigation that could involve the SEC. The choice is theirs. I hung up, my mind racing. Part of me felt guilty for what this could do to my family, but another part, the part that remembered all the times they had dismissed me, all the sacrifices I'd made to help them, felt grim satisfaction. My phone buzzed again with frantic messages from my parents and sister. I ignored them and opened my laptop, browsing the real estate listings I had been eyeing, the Marshall Creek property. It was 200 acres of prime vineyard land just across the valley from River's Edge. Perfect soil composition, excellent sun exposure, and, most importantly, a direct view of my family's vineyard. The amended demand letter hit harder than a storm during harvest. I was in the middle of a virtual tour of Marshall Creek when my father burst into my apartment, holding the letter like a white flag of surrender. Criminal charges? He wheezed. Your own family? I minimized the window showing the vineyard's south-facing slopes. Did you raise me to accept being robbed? Because that's what you did. You took my $850,000 and used it for luxury cars and Italian vacations, all while plotting to lock me out of the business. We never meant, he began. I cut him off. Save it. I've seen the financial records, the new LLC, the asset transfers. You didn't just betray me, you made sure I couldn't fight back. I stood up, my voice steady. You have 40 hours to return my investment with interest, or Rachel files everything with the SEC. His face went from red to pale. You'd destroy your sister's future? She just started as CEO. I laughed bitterly. What about mine? I earned that money while Andrea was posting Instagram photos from business school. Money you promised would secure my place in the family business. We can still work something out, he pleaded. Maybe Andrea could share the CEO position, a co-leadership arrangement? I shook my head. I don't want to share leadership with Andrea. I want my money back. Every penny, plus interest. Then you'll never have to worry about me competing with your precious CEO again." His eyes narrowed. "Competing? What does that mean?" Just then, my phone buzzed. It was the real estate agent handling Marshall Creek. "Hi, Jessica. Great news. The owner is very interested in your offer. They love your vision for expanding the vineyard's production. When can you meet to discuss terms?" I watched my father's face crumble as he realized the truth. Marshall Creek wasn't just any property. It was River's Edge's main competition. When my grandfather ran things, River's Edge had won more awards than any other vineyard. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "Wouldn't what?" I replied. "Start my own vineyard and use my expertise to compete with the business that stole from me?" I learned everything about winemaking from Grandpa. Everything while Andrea was studying business cases. I was studying soil samples and weather patterns. He tried one last emotional jab. "Your grandfather would be ashamed." "No," I said firmly. "He'd be proud. Proud that I'm not letting you and Andrea destroy his legacy with your greed." I turned back to my laptop. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a property to buy. Tick-tock on that 40 hours. My father left without another word, slamming the door behind him. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from Andrea, accusing me of destroying the family. I blocked her number and returned to the Marshall Creek listing. The property needed work, but I could see its potential. Most importantly, its premium grapes and higher elevation would allow me to produce wines that could compete directly with River's Edge's best sellers. My phone buzzed again. It was Rachel. "They're scrambling," she reported. "Just got a call from their lawyer. Looks like they're trying to secure an emergency loan." I smiled. Either way, I win. Either I get my money back, or I get Marshall Creek, and River's Edge will learn what real competition feels like. With just 12 hours left on the deadline, my mother showed up at my office, carrying a thick manila envelope and wearing the same expression she always had when playing peacemaker between Andrea and me as children. "Your father's had to be sedated," she said, sinking into the chair across from my desk. "His blood pressure is through the roof. Are you happy now?" I kept my face neutral. "What's in the envelope, Mom?" She slid it across the desk. "The best we can do. We've mortgaged everything we could. There's $600,000 here. That's all the bank would give us. We can pay the rest in installments." I didn't touch the envelope. That wasn't the deal. $850,000 plus interest. All of it, or Rachel files tomorrow morning. "We don't have it," she snapped, the peacemaker facade cracking. "Andrea's been calling every bank in Texas. No one will give us more without wanting to audit the books. And you know we can't allow that now because of what they'd find." I asked quietly. "Like how you used my investment to pay for Andrea's MBA instead of saving the vineyard. Or how you've been hiding assets in that new LLC." Mom's face went still. "How did you—" "I have copies of everything, Mom. Every transaction, every transfer, every fraudulent business expense. Did you really think no one would notice?" She leaned forward, switching tactics. "Think about what you're doing. If you file those papers, it won't just hurt us. The vineyard's reputation will be ruined. All those people who depend on us. Our workers, our distributors, their families. You'd destroy them all just to spite your sister." "Don't you dare put this on me," I said, my voice hard. "You and Dad chose this path the moment you decided to steal my money. You're the ones who put everyone's jobs at risk, not me." Her facade crumbled. "You've changed, Jessica. You've become hard. Cruel." "No, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "I've just stopped letting you manipulate me. The money or the lawsuit. Those are your only options now. After she left, I called Rachel to update her. They tried to negotiate, I said. Offered partial payment. Stay firm, she advised. From what I'm hearing, they're desperate. Their lawyer's been calling banks all day. The clock was ticking, and I had them exactly where I wanted them. With just 2 hours until the deadline, I sat in Rachel's office, reviewing the final paperwork for both scenarios, the SEC filing and the Marshall Creek purchase agreement. The sun was setting over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of red that reminded me of our Cabernet. Their lawyers had called 4 times in the last hour. They're scrambling, Rachel said, checking her messages. I called James, and he answered immediately. The Vineyard's records show serious irregularities. I can't approve their emergency loan request without a full audit. But there's another option. A bank looking to invest in family wineries. They'd require full transparency, but your parents would get more than just a loan. I texted my father. There's a solution, one that doesn't involve me or the SEC. Call James Turner at First Regional. You have 90 minutes. Andrea's response came instantly. You think sending loan officers will help? Mom's gone through half a box of tissues. I kept my phone close, waiting. The $850,000 wasn't just about money anymore. It was about making them face the consequences of their actions. Rachel worked quietly across from me, preparing both sets of paperwork. Then my father's number appeared on my phone. The bank wants full control of financial decisions for 5 years, he said, his voice rough. Plus 2 board seats. We'd be answering to strangers. Better strangers than thieves, I said. Rachel began preparing the SEC paperwork, but before she could reach for the file, my phone buzzed with an email from James Turner. The subject line read, Documents signed. The attached file showed my parents' signatures on the bank agreement, along with a transfer confirmation for $850,000 plus interest to my account. Looks like they chose survival over pride, Rachel said. I nodded, already pulling up the real estate agent's number. The vineyard across the valley from Marshall Creek was for sale, too. Better water, I whispered, thinking back to the time I'd rejected Andrea's proposal for a new tasting room. Focus on wine quality. I smiled, remembering the first board meeting. They had replaced the Mercedes with a practical truck and canceled the Italian wine tasting tours. Andrea's MBA was proving useless against actual financial oversight. My mother still sent weekly texts about healing the family, but I ignored them. My father hadn't spoken to me since signing the bank agreement. But last week I received a message from Michael. Ready to start planting? I tucked Grandpa's notebook into my jacket. Let's make some wine,